so glad you could attend. Come inside, come inside.
Welcome back to The Price of Business. I am your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Walter Rogers, he is here, and I want to go straight to him. Walter Rogers is with Baker Communications, and you can learn more about that at bakercommunications.com, where I'll give the number later. You have a special guest for us today. Walter, good to have you on.
Hey, thanks, Kevin. Glad to be on. I'm calling in from New York today. It's supposed to be cooler up here than Houston, but you know what? I don't think that's really the case.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. All right, tell us.
We do have a great guest on today. We're talking about metrics, right, which builds right on last week's topic, which was goal setting. One of the things we talked about in goal setting was that if you don't make it measurable, you're never going to achieve your goals, because what are you measuring, right? And so online today is Rocky Soper, and he is one of the top-performing sales reps at VMware, which is just a phenomenally impressive company growing at amazing rates. And so he's not only is he the best at what he does, but he's the best for one of the best. So, Rocky, welcome to the show.
Walter and Kevin, thank you for having me on The Price of Business. Looking forward to it today, and I'm calling in from the great state of Wisconsin.
All right. A little cooler up there. So, yeah, fantastic. So, Rocky, real quickly, a little bit about your company.
VMware, we are the premier provider of virtualization software for both server and desktop virtualization throughout the world. Save companies a lot of money in CapEx, a lot of money in OpEx, and really are out there to drive the market towards things being more efficient in the data center.
All right, I want, I love Walter getting our segments like this launched. Go ahead and jump in with your questioning, and I'll catch up with you.
Well, Kevin, it's impossible to know if you're going to achieve your objective unless, A, you've determined what your objective is going to be, and B, set up some specific measures of success so that you can know if you're on track or off track as you're moving towards achieving your objective. And those measures of success are going to vary if you're selling to large accounts where you have a long sales cycle versus if you're selling to maybe smaller accounts and you're processing a lot more transactions. And so the real key is to just make sure that you've got some metrics of success, and that metric can't just be, I'm going to sell $1 million, because you have to break that down into specific activities, break it down into quarterly, monthly, weekly, in some cases daily targets. And Rocky's got some great perspectives on that, given that he's actually been on both sides of the fence. He's done some transactional selling, and now, of course, he's doing strategic selling. So, Rocky, why don't you share your perspective with us?
That'd be great. Thanks, Walter. I fundamentally believe two things kind of as an overriding principle. First of all, and Walter mentioned it, you got to know your goal. Second things I fundamentally believe in sales is we really only have one currency, and that currency is time. And how we spend our time is going to determine the outcome at the end of a quarter or the end of a half. And we really can't be surprised about it. So throughout my career, one of the fundamental things I've always measured is kind of looking in the rearview mirror, look backwards, and let's see, what has my average deal size been? What's the win ratio been? What is my number of meetings, interactions from a strategic perspective to close those opportunities? Obviously, what is the goal you're there to obtain? And last but not least, be real honest with how many selling weeks are in the quarter or in the half. Very often, I think as salespeople, we go into a quarter or a half measuring we got 12 weeks or 13 weeks of time, depending on quarter. And very often, when you really look at the schedule, you find out there's a 4th of July weekend there, there's a corporate training weekend there, and you really realize what you need to accomplish. In fact, perhaps you only have 10 weeks to get done everything you're trying to get done. And I fundamentally use that math, work it backwards, and really establish how many selling meetings do I need to have in an individual week. Sometimes that math is crazy. You do the math and you go, wow, I have to have 20 meetings a week, which may not be realistic. And then I have to step back and go, you either need to increase deal size, you need to decrease the number of meetings it takes to close those deals, or you're going to miss the goal. And then really proactively look at that every single week and make sure you are adopting what your plan is for the quarter or the half.
Well, one of the problems is that people don't seem to understand the economics of time. They simply don't understand it. And I watch even with my own sales team who works with our marketing company here, in addition to work I do with the radio show, I own a media company where there's involved in sale. And I'm amazed at the time they take between activity that adds up literally to an entire work day. And I tell you right now, cliches like time is money, they exist for a reason.
In the world of sales, quite often we don't lose, we simply run out of time.
Yep. That's right. Go ahead, Walter.
Yeah, the amount of time always exceeds the amount of time available is never enough to achieve the objectives that you've set, right? So that's why Rocky's best practice of really reassessing at the beginning of the quarter the real number of selling weeks and days inside of the quarter, taking into account things like holidays and training events, which most people discount and don't remember, allows you to stay on cadence and really adjust your pace so that you are focusing on the more important activities and discarding the less important ones. Rocky, let me ask you, in terms of some specific metrics, are there some differences that you've seen in selling transactionally versus strategically and the types of things you should measure at the activity level?
Yes, in a transactional where there is some demand in the market, you get to run a little harder and do a lot of transactions. What I've found as I've moved into a strategic selling space is only about 30% of my time can be spent on what I consider to be near-term initiatives with revenue now. The interesting thing is you then have to divide your time up and go, what are the long-term strategic things attempting to align to the business for that strategic customer? And that's tough to measure, but you have to, on a quarterly basis, put some milestones out. So at the end of the quarter, you can examine and say, did we get to the right people? Did we make the right introductions? Did we tie our initiatives to our customers' initiatives and communicate that effectively? It's not directly revenue generating, but it builds the future. And the last piece I find is about 30% of time needs to be spent simply on driving education and adoption of solutions through proof of concepts and through getting wider and both higher within our customers to have an effective communication plan. So they're very different in that you've got to be a little more middle-term focused and long-term focused, while, of course, we want to pay the bills this month, and next month we'll be buying new school shoes for the kids.
Got it. Very interesting conversation, very important conversation. This is probably my single biggest frustration, both in my own personal business, because it's so amazing how you can get lost in time and lose time, but also in watching it with my employees. I just get in shock, because they all state verbally they want to reach a certain level, but you see them undermine it because of poor time management.
Yeah, and the other impact on all of that is it's not even just so much about the amount of revenue that you're able to drive from an account or out of an account, but it's the gross margin that account can generate for you. So, salespeople oftentimes, and this is a compensation problem, but, they'll chase the deal that's got the largest dollar value attached to it because that retires the most quota for them, but that may not be the best deal for the company. There may be other deals that are much, much higher margin that maybe require different investment of time, which are now sacrificing at the expense of that larger deal. So I don't know, Rocky, any thoughts on that?
You're right on. And what I find there's three words that I think are really the enemy of salespeople. Their hope, their weight, and their honesty. And as a salesperson, the toughest thing sometimes is to be honest with yourself rather than tell everybody what they want to hear. And secondarily, anytime you're waiting, you really have to ask yourself, why are you waiting and what are you waiting for? Because waiting means time is going by. And, last but not least, hope. It's been said before, is not a strategy. And if you're hoping somebody buys from you, probably going to be a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Great topic, great conversation. Walter Rogers, of course, he is with Baker Communications and does a phenomenal job every Wednesday, getting us, keeping us up to date, keeping us well versed on what's going on out there in the sales and marketing arena and the customer relations arena as well. 713-6. I'm sorry. 713-627-7700 is his number. 713-627-7700. BakerCommunications.com. And Rocky, what is your website there for your company? Did I lose both of you guys?
We might. No, I'm still here. We might have lost Rocky, and his website is www.vmware.com. VictoryMaryWare.com.
Very good, very good. Wrapping up this segment with Walter Rogers. What do you have coming down the pike?
Well, we continue to move down the path of best practices of selling, and next week we're going to have 3 of the best salespeople from Sprint coming on the line, and we're going to be talking about the importance of continuing to cultivate commitment in a customer account over time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to that. I love what the stuff that you're doing, and that we continue to emphasize, and the quality people that you're bringing on, and I just love what you're doing. And so I appreciate it and look forward to that on every single program. Again, bakercommunications.com. That is the website. Walter Rogers is the person. And again, I love what you're doing. Best practices, I think, is absolutely crucial. You know, just a final thought from you. When it comes to trying to get the most of your employees, when it comes to thinking about time and managing it better, what kind of messages do you try to convey? How do you convey that, Walter?
Well,
Walter, we're going to have to ask that next week. I totally misestimated the clock there. That's going to be a question for next week on The Price of Business on Talk 650, powered by CBS Radio.